Discover how one incredible doctor's risky choice transformed a millionaire's last days forever. Emily Carter hurried through the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallways of Maplewood Hospital, her lab coat fluttering behind her. Navigating between overburdened patients and harried nurses, she felt the weight of the corporate healthcare machine closing in a world where profit often eclipsed compassion. Each day had become a battle against the reality that her dedication to healing felt systematically stifled. Yet, she clung tightly to the values her parents had instilled in her: integrity, dedication, and the belief that every single life mattered. Receiving a referral for Thomas Harrington, a 58-year-old millionaire facing terminal cancer, sent ripples of unease through her. The name echoed in the corridors, a man recognized for his wealth and success. But wealth had not shielded him from the cruel grip of illness. When Emily stepped into his vast, sterile room adorned with expensive decorations, she was confronted by the stark contrast between the lavishness surrounding him and the vulnerability that whispered through his frail body. Desperation flickered in his otherwise proud demeanor. As she wrestled with the ethical implications of seeking an experimental treatment, Emily's thoughts spiraled back to her father. A healthcare system that had let him down led to her relentless pursuit of a different path. Regret wrapped its tendrils around her heart, stoking the fear that this moment mirrored her past where choices had been taken from her by an unforgiving system. The air prickled with tension, amplifying her inner conflict. Should she risk her career for a man who had everything but the one thing that truly mattered? Time. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The stakes heightened. Emily felt every heartbeat echoing the weight of her decision. Struggling against the mounting pressure from the hospital board, she confronted her colleagues, their indignant voices surrounding her like storm clouds. Accusations of unethical practice pierced through her resolve, unsettling her as she recalled the tears she had witnessed and the kindness missing from a system obsessed with margins instead of patients. In her heart, she knew what this man was facing wasn't just physical pain, but an existential battle, a desperate grasp for meaning behind the mask of wealth. Each passing moment tethered her closer to Thomas, deepening their bond with shared laughter and unguarded confessions. Still, each chuckle felt fragile, undermined by the ticking clock that was counting down his remaining days. Emily inhaled sharply, caught between the day-to-day grind of her profession and the moral seas she wished to navigate. A crucial meeting loomed, the pressure coating her throat as their fleeting moments felt as if they were on the brink of collapse. Would she be the one to shake the foundations of a flawed system? Could one woman's risky decision alter not only Thomas's fate but also her own? The tension coiled tighter around her heart, leaving the future suspended in question and uncertainty, as a whisper of courage danced in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, change was within her grasp. The meeting was set for the following morning, the hour etched into Emily's mind with cruel precision. Each tick of the clock tightened her focus. She spent the night tossing and turning, half-formed arguments weaving through her thoughts like threads, fraying under the weight of anxiety. The sanctity of life felt unbearably fragile, yet her only path towards rousing change lay just beyond the conference room doors. As she prepared her notes and reread Thomas's case file, every word felt charged. The experimental treatment could offer him hope, but it also stood as a potential career-ending move for Emily if the board didn't buy into her vision. Overnight, the fragile hope of a healing hand had turned into a double-edged sword. Could she forge ahead and share her plan with conviction? Morning sunlight filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the sterile room where the board convened. Emily stood, heart racing, looking into the faces of her colleagues, whose expressions ranged from skepticism to outright hostility. Dr. Adams, the medical director, sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, his disapproval looming larger than any wall. "Emily, what exactly are you proposing?" he posed, the challenge deceptively calm. The weight of the question pressed down on her, igniting a fire in her chest. She gathered her thoughts, knowing this was not merely a meeting about patient care. It was a collision of corporate bureaucracy and genuine humanity. The moment she had dreaded now unfolded chaotically, yet she felt the stirrings of resolve. "I propose we consider an experimental treatment for Thomas Harrington," she stated firmly, glancing down at her notes but quickly meeting the dark eyes of her challengers. "He deserves a chance. He is not just a case number, he is a man who's terrified of dying." Silence fell. The board members exchanged glances, a ripple of judgment spreading across the room. Emily pressed on, not allowing the weight of their scrutiny to deflect her purpose. She outlined Thomas's situation, detailing the emotional struggles along with the medical risks. Her conviction blossomed as she spoke about the real impacts of their choice about life, dignity, and second chances. When she concluded, there was a tangible heaviness in the air. Yet Dr. Adams' narrow gaze held no warmth. "Do you have any idea how costly this treatment is? Are you prepared for the liability that could ensue?" "I understand the risks," she replied, her voice unwavering. "But the reward of offering life to someone who fears death is far greater than any financial consideration. Isn't that why we became doctors?" His mouth tightened, but before he could respond, Dr. Spears spoke up, a hint of curiosity flickering in her previously impassive expression. "What if we do this? What if, as a team, we cover the costs and take this case to management as a trial? If it succeeds, we'll have something concrete to argue for similar cases going forward." Emily felt the flicker of support lift her spirits, but doubt swiftly followed. Would they truly rally behind her in a system designed to quash idealism? With each passing moment, she embraced her vulnerability. Sharing the burden of her past, the helplessness she felt when her father could not be saved, the frustration that a broken system might forge deeper connections with her colleagues. This could be the catalyst that strengthened their resolve. Yet, she had no assurances. Would they stand with her? As voices began to resonate, a wave of uncertainty washed over her again. The fragile coalition seemed to hang in the balance, barely holding together. She sensed that something deeper was at play. Not only her professional future hung by a thread, but her very identity as a healer. Outside in the hallway, the fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead as she awaited their verdict. Every sinew in her body vibrated with anxiety. Would they see her fight as noble or reckless? The time had come to face her greatest fear, fighting for what she believed in, regardless of the personal cost. But just as the door creaked open, a disheveled nurse rushed past her, breathless and distressed. Something was wrong. A new urgency thrummed within her. What could this mean for Thomas? Would she lose her opportunity to save a life amidst the chaos, or was another test of her character about to unfold? Emily instinctively turned to follow the nurse, her heart pounding. The nurse's expression was fraught with desperation, a look that ignited a flicker of panic deep within her. "Wait!" Emily called, her voice sharp and commanding even as it quivered at the edges. She hastily caught up to the nurse, whose name she could hardly recall amidst her anxious thoughts. "What is going on?" "Room 204, the nurse gasped, eyes wide. "It's Thomas. His condition, it's deteriorating. He needs you." Each word landed like a heavy stone, sending ripples of fear racing through Emily. A rush of adrenaline propelled her forward as she navigated the sterile corridors, her mind teetering between clinical instinct and the weight of responsibility. Thomas was more than just a case study, he was a man battling for every breath, for every moment. As she entered room 204, the stark reality of the situation flooded her senses. The beeping machines, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and the pallor of Thomas's face left her breathless. He lay frail on the bed, yet his eyes flickered with defiance even in his weakened state, as if they were pleading for help, for understanding. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking. "You came." "I'm here, Thomas. I'm here," she reassured him, kneeling beside his bed. She could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down, forcing her to confront the implications of her earlier convictions. Her proposal for the experimental treatment, rejected by some, seemed more urgent than ever. Can we talk about the treatment? He asked, hope laced with fear. Is it still a possibility? The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, straining under the weight of their circumstances. It was a moment fraught with tension, one that could alter the course of both their lives. Emily hesitated, emotions tipping the scales between professional duty and personal belief. They're considering it, she said carefully. But I can't promise anything. They think it's risky. Emily, he rasped, searching her eyes. I can't just wait. If there's a chance I want to fight. In that moment, Emily understood the depth of his determination. It transcended numbers, outcomes, and prospects. It was purely human. At that moment, she had a choice, to allow the bureaucratic fears to cloud her vision or to embrace his plea and fight alongside him. Okay, she replied, steeling herself. I'll fight for you. I'll talk to the board. We'll do this together. A small smile flickered across his face, but before she could revel in the fleeting joy, it dimmed slightly, replaced by a look of realization. What about your career? The question struck at a raw nerve, reverberating within her soul. For Emily, the looming personal cost had been a constant shadow, yet it now loomed larger than ever. Was she willing to risk everything to stand by a man fighting for his life? Doubt crept in, gnawing at her resolve. I have to try, Thomas, she insisted, though her voice faltered slightly. The urgency of his situation breathed life into her purpose, propelling her away from self-doubt. I won't let you down. As she steadied herself, an unshakable determination ignited within her. This was not merely about Thomas but about the values she had sworn to uphold, the conviction that every life mattered. Returning to the conference room, a fresh wave of commitment surged through her veins. She would confront the board anew, armed with the relentlessness she had seen in Thomas's eyes, only she could bring the realities they faced into the stark light of day, hold the board accountable, and challenge them to deem Thomas worthy of more than just a financial statistic. But just as she reached for the door, apprehension flared. Would they listen? Or worse, would they cast her aside like so many others who had tried to foster change before her? Determined but anxious, Emily took a deep breath, readying herself for the clash ahead. The stakes had risen, and the next step she took could determine not just her own fate but that of Thomas too. How far would she go to challenge the system for the sake of a life on the line? Emily's hand hovered over the doorknob for an agonizing moment. Doubt flickered through her, a voice whispering that failure was not just possible, but likely. She exhaled slowly, forcing the panic to subside. Those sterile walls had once felt like a shield, protecting her from personal entanglements. But now, they loomed like a barrier between what she loved about medicine, its potential to heal, and the cold, hard realities of hospital politics. Inside the conference room, the faint hum of cool air and incessant beeping from nearby machines provided a mocking soundtrack to what loomed before her. The board members, a group of stoic figures, were already seated around the long, polished table, their faces betraying a blend of disinterest and mild irritation at being interrupted. The chairperson, Dr. Anderson, leaned back, fingers steepled, eyes narrowing over her half-moon glasses. Emily, we were just discussing your recent proposal, she said, her tone laced with understated skepticism. The words hung in the air, each syllable a challenge. Emily's pulse quickened, but this time it wasn't from fear, it was from purpose. She placed her hands flat against the table, grounding herself like a ship in a stormy sea. Dr. Anderson, I need to speak about Thomas's condition, she started, her voice resonating with an intensity that silenced the room. His treatment options are limited and time is running out. We must consider the experimental approach I suggested, regardless of what our financial advisors deem prudent. This is about a life, not a ledger. A stark silence settled as the board members exchanged glances, their skepticism palpable. Emily felt the walls inch closer, suffocating with doubt, but she pressed on. Every hesitation from us means lost time for Thomas. This is not simply a risk. It could be his last chance. Dr. Anderson raised an eyebrow. Your passion for the case is admirable, but we have to weigh the risks both ethically and financially. The liability of going forward with a treatment not fully cleared by trials. Ethics should not be about numbers, Emily interjected, her heartbeat resonating in her ears. Ethics must reflect our commitment to patients. If we continue this hesitance, we abandon those we are meant to serve. A murmur passed among the board members, a ripple of discomfort at her boldness. She knew her words ventured into dangerous territory, yet she felt a new clarity. Thomas was more than a patient. His struggle mirrored her own, a fight against a system more preoccupied with statistics than humanity. Have we become so entrenched in our policies, she continued, emboldened, that we've forgotten why we entered medicine in the first place? To make a difference, to advocate for those whose voices are dimmed by bureaucracy. Dr. Anderson leaned forward, her expression hardening. And what of your career, Emily? This could put you at significant risk within our institution. Emily hesitated, feeling the weight of the question settle in her gut. What would she sacrifice? The career I chose hinges on my willingness to stand for what's right, she replied, a new resolve sharpening her voice. I refuse to back down when lives are at stake. The silence stretched unbearably as her declarations resonated within the walls. Would they see the truth in her words? Or would they cast her aside for her audacity? Very well, Dr. Anderson replied finally, her tone inscrutable. We will convene again tomorrow to discuss this matter further. As the meeting adjourned, Emily stepped out into the hallway, each breath filling her with determination rationed against the uncertainty ahead. The risk was tangible, but so too was a newfound sense of agency. She had faced the board, but the war was not over. Now, she must employ not just her clinical knowledge, but her ability to persuade, to inspire, and to enact real change within the institution. On her way back to room 204, Emily felt the walls grow less restrictive, transforming into avenues for potential action. It wasn't just about Thomas, it was about what she would become: a voice. For the voiceless in a mechanized world. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a message flashing across the screen: we need to talk. There are complications. Curiosity mixed with dread. What complications were arising, and how would they affect Thomas's case? The stakes had never been higher. Emily barely had time to process the message before her mind raced ahead, calculating the implications. She quickened her pace toward room 204, urgency propelling her steps forward. The sterile hallway lights flickered overhead, pulsing like her anxious heartbeat. Was it about Thomas, or was it a deeper complication tied to her bold defiance in the boardroom? Reaching the door, she knocked twice before entering. The room, typically a haven of calm, felt charged with tension. Dr. Patel sat at the desk, papers strewn about like an old battleground. His eyes met hers with a mixture of concern and intrigue, the kind that hinted at the weight of the conversation. Emily, he began, leaning back with visible unease. I received a call just minutes after the meeting. It's about the experimental treatment. Her heart pounded. What do you mean? Did they reject it? No, he said, running a hand over his thinning hair. They're considering it, but we have to tread carefully. There's legal and ethical pushback brewing. I want to catch it before it escalates. Emily took a deep breath to dispel the swirling anxiety. What should I do? We have to protect Thomas. We can't let bureaucracy win this fight. Your passion is commendable, but we must find a strategy, Dr. Patel replied. His tone softened as he leaned closer. Perhaps we need evidence, something to rally support not just from the board, but from colleagues, from Thomas's family. Emily nodded slowly, feeling the spark of a plan igniting within her. We can compile data on the effectiveness of similar treatments from other studies. If we can present a compelling case, it might shift opinions. That's a start, he said, encouragingly. But we also need a narrative, something that humanizes the statistics. Can you talk to Thomas's family? Their voices will carry more weight than ours. The notion felt daunting yet invigorating. This was not mere strategy, it was about connecting the dots between numbers and lives. I can do that. I can meet with them today, she replied, resolve settling firmly in her gut. Be prepared, Dr. Patel warned, concern etched on his face. Remember that family is vulnerable right now. They might react emotionally. It's their son at stake, Emily countered, her determination mounting. If talking to them is what it takes, so be it. I won't let fear dictate our course. As she stepped out of the room with a renewed sense of purpose, the reality of her role sank in deeper. She understood now that her journey was no longer just about her personal development but entwined with the lives of others. Each conversation had the potential to shift perspectives, generate momentum, and turn the tide. She headed to the waiting room, where Thomas's family sat, their faces etched with worry. Emily's heart ached for them, but it also swelled with determination. She would connect their pain to a greater narrative and through that, hope to mobilize not just support for Thomas, but for all the patients caught in the machinery of hospital politics. Taking a calming breath, she approached them, her voice steady but empathetic. Can I talk to you about Thomas's treatment options? There are important things we need to discuss. The father looked up, his eyes filled with both skepticism and a flicker of something else, perhaps hope. For the first time, Emily sensed that she was not only fighting for Thomas, but also discovering her own strength, her own courage, and her purpose in this intricate tapestry of life and death. But as she spoke, a sudden emotional outburst from Thomas's mother sent shockwaves through the room. Would the emotional tides shift against her? She had already stirred the waters, now, it was time to navigate the storm. Emily took a deep breath, ready to confront what lay ahead. Would the truth she brought forth heal or hurt? Emily steadied herself as she faced Thomas's family. The heaviness in the air was palpable, laden with their fears and uncertainties. She unlocked her resolve, willing herself to remain composed despite the emotional turmoil swirling around her. Thomas has potential treatment options that we believe could work, but we have to act swiftly, she urged, her voice steady yet infused with compassion. She met each gaze, searching for understanding, envisioning how to connect their desperation to a narrative that underwent a transformation from despair to hope. Treatment options. Thomas's mother's voice wavered, a tremor of fear lacing her words. We heard there's a chance, but will it work? We've been through so much already. Emily inhaled, her mind racing with the daunting responsibility ahead. I believe it can work, but we need to come together. The voices of families like yours carry weight. Might we compile your testimonies? What Thomas means to you, what his dreams are. That connection could sway decision-makers. A flicker of hesitance crossed the mother's face, while the father frowned, clearly wrestling with skepticism. And what if it's just another dead end? We can't bear more disappointment, he said, his words like sharp stones against Emily's determination. I understand your fears, Emily replied, leaning forward, vulnerability in her tone. But every great advancement in medicine has faced opposition. It's the personal stories, the struggles and hopes, that can change minds. You can help make this different. Let your voices be heard. The mother's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emily's heart wrenched at the sight. How could her ambition to be a force for change not simultaneously carry empathy? Can we really do anything? The mother whispered, glancing nervously at her husband, pulling strength from him like a lifeline. That's the whole point. Together, we can confront the medical and ethical barriers, illuminate Thomas's humanity and the urgency of his case. Emily breathed, her voice filling the room with a flickering light of hope. Please, allow me to advocate for him, to utilize your voices to stand against this injustice. A moment of charged silence enveloped them, heavy with potential pathways. This was the critical juncture. Would they embrace vulnerability and take action? The father shifted, drawing in a determined breath. If we speak for Thomas, will you ensure they listen? Will you fight as hard for him as we will? I promise, Emily replied, her affirmation a solemn vow. I'll also gather the necessary data and research we discussed. I will not let bureaucracy silence us. As the family began to discuss their memories of Thomas, I could see their walls breaking down, emotions pouring out like cathartic waves. Emily felt invigorated, Each shared story fueled her resolve as she recognized the latent strength woven within these fragile moments. She was no longer just advocating for a treatment, she was becoming a bridge between suffering and healing, but as they explored their triumphs and sorrows, a sudden thought gnawed at Emily. What if the medical establishment's dismissal of emotional pleas outweighed the story's resonance? What if her efforts could crumble against the inertia of procedural resolve? Timber framed with uncertainties, she found herself standing precariously on the edge of a looming cliff. This journey was reshaping her. She began to notice the lines blurring between personal ambition and the ethical responsibilities held toward those seeking hope. As each moment unfolded, the trials ahead cast a long shadow over her emerging confidence. And just when her thoughts began to align, another ripple jolted her thoughts. A new voice, a sudden revelation, a potential ally, was about to enter their strained conversation. Would this unearthed voice solidify her strategy, or would it pose an unforeseen challenge? Emily's resolve crystallized. The warmth of the family's shared stories bolstered her spirit, fortifying her with a sense of mission. Yet, as she prepared to engage this new voice, her heart raced with anticipation and doubt. Who would this ally be? How would their presence impact the fragile momentum she had fostered? The door creaked, pulling her attention. A tall, commanding figure entered. Dr. Lucas Harrington, a well-respected oncologist with a reputation for challenging conventions. He strode forward, his expression a blend of curiosity and urgency, and Emily's instincts kicked in, sensing that he possessed insights that could alter the course of their mission. "Excuse my interruption," he said, his gaze settling on Emily. "I believe we might have a more effective approach to Thomas's treatment options." He paused, gesturing to the family. "If you're looking to garner wider support, I can help professionalize your narrative." Surprise flickered across Emily's face. She had studied his work but found him often inaccessible. "You would help us?" Her voice trembled slightly, ignited by both hope and skepticism. "Absolutely," he nodded earnestly. "But I need to understand your existing strategies first. You're already on the right path, but we must align our efforts with data-driven evidence. We cannot solely rely on emotional appeals, though they are crucial. They need grounding in solid research." His words ignited a spark within her. For far too long, she had been focused on the emotional connection, feeling that her heart and the family's anguished plight were enough. But Lucas's point unraveled her misconceptions. She realized that emotion, while powerful, must dance in harmony with undeniable clarity. As they navigated through Thomas's medical history, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline. She contributed details, instinctively weaving the personal stories of hope and determination into the cold, hard facts of statistics and clinical outcomes. It was a delicate choreography. The more she articulated, the lighter her heart felt. "Your stories have life," Lucas observed, glancing at Thomas's parents with genuine respect. "Let us build a presentation that reflects both that life and the urgency of Thomas's case. I can gather compelling research studies to accompany your words." His suggestions swept through Emily like a fresh breeze, invigorating her sense of purpose. If they combined their forces, it could maximize the impact of their testimony. It was a realization that echoed within her. The intersection of emotional appeal and rational argument could break through bureaucratic walls, but another revelation loomed over her. Could she trust Lucas? Would his seasoned approach truly align with their raw emotions, or would it co-opt their narrative into sterile statistics? The weight of doubt clung to her thoughts. "Do you really believe that melding these themes will make a difference?" she asked cautiously, seeking affirmation of her flickering optimism. "I have seen it work before," he replied, his eyes unyieldingly earnest. "It's about presenting a human story backed by concrete evidence. Let us turn Thomas into not just a name but a case that resonates across the board." As Emily contemplated this new alliance, it became apparent that their success hinged on careful negotiation of emotions and professionalism. The stakes deepened, and she felt the pressure mounting. If their efforts faltered, the family faced an uncertain future. Determined, she said, "Let us do it then. Together, we can demand to be heard." With plans in motion, Emily sensed both a new beginning and a looming challenge ahead. She saw the multifaceted journey awaiting them, characterized by conflict and growth, and she was left with a burning question: would this partnership forge a path to success, or merely lead to greater disillusionment amidst the complexities of the medical world? The time had come to forge her path, but as she steeled herself for the journey ahead, the tremor of doubt whispered, who truly possessed the authority to tell Thomas's story? Emily's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation as she began to draft the presentation that would encapsulate Thomas's story. The duality of emotional narrative and empirical data weighed heavily on her. She felt alien in the realm of hard statistics, yet she yearned to manifest a vision that could bridge the gap between the clinical and the personal. In a cramped room filled with papers, charts, and hopeful pictures of Thomas grinning among friends, Emily sat across from Dr. Harrington, who was hunched over his laptop, typing swiftly. His fingers moved like a skilled pianist, dancing across the keys to orchestrate a compelling argument for their case. "This part needs more impact," he said, glancing up but fixing his gaze on the screen. "You're doing well on the emotional side. Now we need to incorporate some clinical outcomes. Think about how these treatments have clinically impacted similar cases." Her mind swirled. She had crafted her approach from the heart, and now, faced with the challenge of pulling from hard data, a seed of self-doubt began to sprout. What if she failed to grasp the clinical implications? What if her lack of familiarity alienated the very people she sought to help? Determined not to show any sign of faltering, she reached for a folder filled with Thomas's documents. As she rifled through them, Emily felt the weight of responsibility surging within her. She was the voice for a family fighting against time. She had to rise to this occasion. "Right," she said, resolutely straightening her back. "Let's focus on the data points we can utilize. What about treatment responses, survival rates? We need to approach this from both angles." As Lucas nodded, a flicker of pride lit Emily's spirits. Maybe this partnership could draw out latent abilities she hadn't yet unearthed. She began piecing together a narrative that combined the human element with statistics. Vivid anecdotes and numbers joined forces. Surprisingly, she found herself recalling previous moments when she had navigated complex subjects, not just in this pressing situation but throughout her life. There had been instances in school projects where she melded creativity with structured data. Maybe it wasn't just about the harshness of numbers, but about how they could highlight the intricacies of the human experience. "Look here," Lucas interrupted her reverie, pointing to the projected screen. "This study emphasizes how compassionate care measures have increased compliance among patients with similar diagnoses. How can we interlace that with Thomas's narrative?" Emily felt a rush of realization. She didn't need to abandon her faith in the emotional weight of the situation. Instead, by blending the statistics with personal resonance, she could illustrate a heartfelt plea for attention where the medical community often faltered. Ideas sparked and flowed as she spoke, energizing her as she proposed ways to make the clinical implications more vibrant. Lucas's enthusiasm ignited her further. "Exactly," he exclaimed, "if we create a vivid picture showing Thomas not only as a patient but as a fighter combined with these statistics, it transforms us from a diagnosis to a case worth championing. This is what can change pathos to action." But as they delved deeper into their preparation, a shadow of doubt resurfaced. What if stakeholders rejected their narrative? What if they deemed it too emotional or ineffectively merged? With every passing moment, that question gnawed at Emily. She was traversing uncharted territory, a world that demanded both authenticity and precision. Could she truly balance it? In the silence that followed, Emily sat quietly until she felt an adrenaline rush. "Lucas," she said, her voice steady but electric with urgency, "if we're going to do this, we need to be daring. We have to be bold not just in our message but also in challenging the system's narratives." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Are you suggesting a different approach? If we present Thomas as a symbol of what's at stake, not merely as a statistic but as a life, perhaps we can confront the apathy toward cases like his. We need to shake them awake." The flicker of his interest ignited a newfound collaboration that sparked within her. Together, they constructed a powerful call to action, poised at the intersection of emotion and evidence. As they finalized their outline, Emily felt her resolve solidify. She would not simply advocate, she would incite change. But just as the sparks of determination ignited within her, she caught a glimpse of an email flash across Lucas's screen. It was an invitation to a medical board meeting that could determine Thomas's treatment options. The moment was dawning, but would their message reach receptive hearts and minds or shatter against indifference? Emily's instincts flared. Before she fully grasped the weight of the moment, she felt a compelling force draw them into confrontation. The stakes were rising, and she could sense her destiny intertwining with Thomas's fate. Would she dare challenge the status quo? Would she craft a narrative that could resonate beyond their immediate circle? The hour was late, but Emily understood that her fight was only just beginning. Emily felt the air around her thicken with urgency as the email lingered on Lucas's screen. A medical board meeting, the very potential pivot that could steer Thomas's fate into the unknown. The stakes felt impossibly high, and the pressure to perform hung over her like a storm cloud. This was her chance not only to advocate for Thomas but also to affirm her place in this relentless world of medicine where voices often faded into monotony. The following day dawned, and Emily's mind buzzed with trepidation. She arrived at the hospital with a folder clutched tightly in her hands. The anticipated meeting loomed before her, a gauntlet of innovation and tradition in the medical community that often favored clinical coldness over compassionate narratives. But she was armed with insights, statistics, and most importantly, a powerful story to tell. The meeting room felt austere, a stark contrast to the warmth she wished to convey for Thomas. White walls encased a long table where doctors and stakeholders sat, their expressions a mix of skepticism and impatience. Emily took a deep breath, scanning the room for signs of receptivity. She locked eyes with Dr. Harrington, who nodded in encouragement, a lifeline in this sea of uncertainty. When it came time to speak, Emily felt the weight of eyes pinning her in place. She started detailing the impersonal metrics of Thomas's condition, allowing numbers and data to roll off her tongue. But as she progressed, a wave of realization washed over her. Drowning in the statistics of mortality rates and treatment efficacy would not be enough. She had promised herself boldness. Thomas isn't just a number, she declared, her voice rising with intensity. He is a vibrant individual with a story and dreams. His fight embodies everything that is at stake when we look at the clinical outcomes in isolation. She paused, gauging their reactions, searching for any flicker of empathy. A few heads nodded, and encouragement surged within her. Would this be enough to spark a true connection? Summoning her inner resolve, she recalled the images of Thomas laughing with friends and the loving conversations she shared with his family. With a steady voice, she weaved his journey into the paradigm of data she had initially struggled against, threading compassion through statistics to create a tapestry that spoke to both heart and mind. As her narrative unfolded, the tension in the room shifted. She could see flickers of realization on the faces in front of her, faces that had too often shunned the emotional undertones of clinical narratives. Emily pressed on, using Thomas's struggles, triumphs, and the dispassionate system that threatened to overlook him, making her message impossible to ignore. Just as she reached the crescendo of her presentation, a hand shot up. Dr. Lawson, a formidable presence in the room, interrupted with a stern gaze. "But Emily," he said, his voice clipped, "this emotional appeal, how does it justify the risks entailed in implementing new treatment protocols?" Her heart raced. Was this the confrontation she had anticipated? This was the moment where her conviction would be tested resolutely. What if he dismissed everything she had worked hard to articulate? Taking a deep breath, she remembered the early moments of her collaboration with Lucas, the dozens of late nights they had poured their souls into crafting this narrative. What we risk by not taking bold steps toward compassionate care, she countered, fear blending with determination, is the loss of countless lives feeling unheard and ignored. Would you want Thomas to merely become another statistic? The room fell silent, the air bristling with potential. She could feel the shift, the question lingering in the atmosphere, creating an opening for possibility. As she concluded, a sense of fierce adrenaline coursed through her. This was her fight. Would they see the value in blending empathy with evidence? With uncertainty swirling around the outcome, Emily fought back the urge to dwell on the outcome. Instead, she faced the brutal reality that even if they rejected her now, she had traversed the line from doubt into undeniable conviction. She was evolving, emergent with each step, no longer the timid voice seeking validation but a bold advocate for those like Thomas. Just as the meeting adjourned, she received a whispered comment from Dr. Harrington, "You're not just challenging the system, you're reshaping it." But Emily was also keenly aware of the hurdles still ahead. What would happen when she faced the true heart of indifference, those who might resist her vision? Would she have to confront not just indifference but intentional dismissal? Her mind raced with possibilities. The fight was only just beginning, nurturing an ember of determination inside her as she braced for what lay ahead. The real battle had yet to be fought, but she wouldn't back down. She would become a voice that echoed through the walls of apathy. Only one question lingered: would she emerge stronger, or would the system's weight push her back into the shadows? Emily Carter stood at the threshold of the hospital's conference room, her heart pounding with the weight of her mission. She had faced the board, laid bare Thomas Harrington's plight, and ignited conversations about compassion amid corporate structures. Yet, the true victory was not merely winning his treatment, it was realizing her own transformation. In the months that followed, the decision to pursue the experimental treatment for Thomas not only earned media attention but also ignited a movement within the hospital. Emily's relentless efforts to bridge diagnostics with human stories became a paradigm shift. The board's hesitant agreement to fund Thomas's treatment set the stage for him to receive the miracle he desperately needed. It was a moment of triumph. The power of a compelling narrative intertwined with unwavering conviction had conquered inertia, but it wasn't just Thomas's life that affected change, it was Emily's self-discovery along the way. She had become a voice of integrity in a system shrouded in bureaucracy, proving that compassion could coexist with clinical excellence. Nurses and doctors around the hospital began sharing their stories of patient experiences. Discussions of ethics and patient-centered care blossomed, rooted in the foundation laid by Emily's audacity to challenge the status quo. One afternoon, Emily received an email that would further validate her work: a recognition award nomination from the hospital's medical council. They cited her innovative approach that galvanized her colleagues and promoted holistic care practices for patients. It was the acknowledgement she had longed for, affirming that courage coupled with vulnerability could shift paradigms. Instead of feeling fear of repercussions from the board, she began to nurture confidence in her principles. No longer tethered by fear or doubt, she mused, reflecting on how far she had come. Each challenge had sharpened her professional identity and fortified her skill set. She had acquired adept negotiation skills and a knack for blending narratives that converted trials into triumphant stories. Emily was now leading workshops on integrating compassionate care within medical interventions. Her sessions emphasized the dual importance of heart and mind, not only fostering better relationships within the medical community but also advocating for patient experiences and their significance in treatment protocols. The stark contrast from feeling like a cog in a bureaucratic machine to being a pivotal force in redefining care shone brightly like a beacon of hope. As she looked out at her peers during one of these workshops, their faces filled with engagement and inspiration, she felt a swell of pride. They shared stories of their struggles and successes, weaving a tapestry of healing narratives that resonated within the walls of the hospital. Emily had achieved not only her personal growth but had also nurtured a renewed commitment to healthcare values across her institution. One day, as she walked through the hallways of Maplewood Hospital, an unfamiliar doctor approached her, his demeanor confident and appreciative. "You're Emily Carter, right? I heard you're the one who fought for Thomas's treatment. Your story inspired our team to rethink how we approach patient care, it's creating ripples." Gratitude washed over her. In that moment, she realized her journey had transcended her original apprehension. She had forged a pioneering path grounded in unwavering conviction and ethical practice, reshaping the medical landscape one story at a time. As she stepped outside into the sun-drenched streets, Emily could feel a profound sense of accomplishment radiating from within. She had overcome her challenges and emerged a trailblazer, driven by purpose rather than fear. With a solid confidence bolstered by recognition and competence, she understood that she had not only transformed her career but ignited a movement dedicated to meaningful patient care. this was no time to relax, her journey was merely beginning. In that moment, her heart raced with the excitement of new challenges awaiting her. Emily knew she was now equipped with the strength to navigate whatever came next, propelled by the unwavering belief that every patient's life matters. Now standing firmly at the intersection of purpose and passion, it is imperative to rediscover the power of stories and individual advocacy that lead to patient empowerment and care. This is your call to action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support us in bringing these tales to life. Comment below your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.